Our story today took place in the year 1924 in the state of Oregon in America, and the case is both strange and mysterious at the same time. The victims were three men: Edward Nichols, 50 years old, Roy Wilson, 35 years old, and Dewey Morris, 25 years old. They were all four trappers, meaning they hunted animals with valuable fur such as bears, foxes, and others, and all three lived in a city called Bend. One day they gathered and decided to spend another winter, the winter of 1923 and the beginning of 1924, in a wooden cabin in the forest so they could hunt animals and collect their fur. The cabin belonged to a man from their city named Edward Logan. On January 15, 1924, their friend Alan Wilcoxon visited them and the cabin. Alan was the owner of a resort in the same city, and he spent the evening with them. The three men were happy and excited about the animals they had hunted. The next morning, January 16, 1924, Alan Wilcoxon left the cabin heading toward Elk Lake. And Elk Lake is a lake with a historical resort that includes cabins, a restaurant, and a dock, and it was most likely the resort owned by their friend Alan. And this was the last time anyone saw the three men alive. Days passed without any news. Morris's brother, Enos Owen Morris, along with Bear Lenz, the manager of a fish hatchery, noted something strange. The hunters' activity in the city had completely disappeared, which made them suspect that something serious had happened to the three men. They decided to inform the police and begin a search. In April 1924, the search team headed to the cabin and they found inside the cabin food was burned on the stove and the dining table was set for a meal, as if something stopped them from finishing preparing and eating their food. Outside the cabin there was supposed to be a large snow sled, the one they used to move equipment, but it was missing and they found a hammer stained with blood. When they examined the animal traps the men had set, they found frozen remains of 12 beavers, 4 foxes, and skunk, as if animals had eaten them or someone took them from the traps, and the traps were still in place, neglected in the area. The next day, the sheriff, Clarence Adams, arrived and began to investigation. Near Lava Lake, they found the large sled with blood stains on it, and on the edge of a lake there was a hole in the ice, pools of blood, strands of hair, and a human tooth. When the ice melted, they took a boat out into the lake and found the bodies of the three men floating on the surface. The police documented that the murders did not happen at the same moment, and that the killings occurred between late December 1923 and mid-January 1924. It was believed that Edward Nichols was most likely killed inside the cabin, since small blood stains were found there. As for Wilson and Morris, they were most likely killed near the lake, where the sled, the hole in the ice, and the large blood stains were found, supporting the idea that they were lured or taken there. When the autopsies were performed, since the bodies had been in cold water for a long time, it became difficult to determine the exact time of death, but the injuries showed the use of firearm that had fired multiple shots, as well as the use of a hammer. The sled had blood on it, indicating that the killers used it to transport at last two bodies to the edge of the lake and the hole in the ice to hide them. But maybe something changed their plan. Police estimated its value between $4 and $5, a very large amount at the time, and it seems that the main motive for the crime was theft. A shotgun used by one of the victims for pure hunting was never found, and it may have been used in the crime. A man named Charles Kemsey, known to the police and who had a history of problems with the territories. He was arrested 9 years later at Montana on a robbery charge, and they questioned him about the Lava Lake murders. He denied involvement and they could not link any weapon he had to the bullets that killed the victims. It's believed that the killers used the hammer and the gun and transported the bodies using the sled to hide them in the frozen lake. But Kems's involvement was never proven official. In the end, one thing is clear. Three men went out to earn their living through hunting, but their ending was tragic and mysterious. And until this day, the forest carries their silent story that has never